Which games are must bets for week 10 of the 2023 NFL season? What's going on, gridiron gamblers? It's Mitch here, back with another week of my favorite spread picks. My NFL best bets for week 10, with the goal of helping you win some money this 2023 NFL season. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe for weekly NFL best bets here on the Bottom Line View. Last week, 60% at 3-2. And we absolutely nailed the Cincinnati Bengals as that top pick of the week. 29, 22, and 2 overall on the season. And we're hoping that those struggles are officially behind us. Now that that has been said, get in the comments. Let me know your best bet for week number 10. And let's kick it off with the first pick versus the spread for week 10, which is, yes, sir, we are going back to the well with the Cincinnati Bengals minus 6.5 versus CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. Despite CJ Stroud having a historic day, and despite my handicap of that game, quite frankly, being totally wrong, we were totally right on winning versus the spread with a +3, even a +2.5 if you weren't able to get the 3 with the Tampa Bay Bucks. So congratulations. This week they play the Bengals. And why do I love the Bengals after CJ Stroud just obliterated Tampa Bay? 5 touchdowns, 470 yards, historic day. Well, that's one of the reasons why. You want to fade a rookie quarterback and any quarterback after having an outlier game, period. I love CJ Stroud. I've said this so many times. I was higher on him than 99.9% of pundits on YouTube or anywhere for that matter. And the videos on my channel prove that. But the fact of the matter is, this is a epic spot for Cincinnati to take advantage of. So last week, I told you, the Bengals, the Bills, it's a mismatch. The spread makes no sense. We saw Joe Burrow dice up the Bills defense. We saw Joe Burrow return to form versus San Francisco. Cincinnati has played 2 good teams in a row. I would argue 1 elite team in San Francisco on the road, and then 1 good team in Buffalo, very good quarterback in Josh Allen. This week, they play at home, once again, versus a young, flawed, mediocre football team. I think that's fair with the Texans. The reason I love this so much is CJ Stroud and the Texans as a young team and their splits at home and on the road. When you look at CJ Stroud at home versus on the road, his numbers at home, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1,300 yards, and a 3-1 record. When you look at CJ Stroud on the road, which he will be in the jungle, we like fun and games. 1-3, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 911 yards. So that's the same amount of games. The reverse record, 1-3 on the road, 3-1 at home. 8 less touchdowns. That's crazy. CJ Stroud has been way better at home, in the dome, than on the road and outdoors in Cincinnati. Also, I love this game for the Bengals offensively. They've been awesome, man. And I really feel like Joe Burrow, no matter the defense, is going to put up points. But you look at The Texans 24th in dropback EPA allowed. One of the worst pass defenses in football. Baker Mayfield was slicing them all day long. Rachaad White had some success on the ground. I expect more for Joe Mixon. I think Burrow will get in a lead, be comfortable, control the game. The defense, of course, is great in the red zone, opportunistic. They'll get a turnover or two, a couple key sacks, and as we know, Stroud just hasn't been the same guy on the road. It makes sense. He's young. It makes sense this team is young. This coaching staff is young. It makes sense. And the Bengals are an experienced win-now team that is one of the most dominant and best thoroughly in football. The Texans are also one-dimensional as they're one of the worst rush offenses in football, and Cincinnati has one of the better run defenses as of late in the NFL. So I don't expect Stroud to have much help in this game from his defense or his run game, and I expect the Bengals to put up some points on the Texans at home. Under 7, this feels like a really good bet. If this was 8, 8.5, maybe you start to get to, Stroud could play well and backdoor the Bengals. But under a touchdown, Cincinnati's on 3 different levels. 3 levels higher than the Texans. They're a Super Bowl caliber team. The Texans are a fun story. I'm taking the Bengals minus 6.5 for another week on the best bets. My second best bet for week number 10 is the San Francisco 49ers minus 3 at the Jacksonville Jags. And I know what you're thinking, Mitch. You've bet the Niners before and you've been wrong. But I've also been right. I will say that. I've also been right. But, this is not just some random game in the middle of the schedule for the 49ers. This is a chips into the middle of the table. Push it all in. We're coming off a 3-game losing streak, a Super Bowl contending team in the NFC that just traded for Chase Young. They upgraded already a stacked defense and defensive line with Chase Young. Maybe the missing piece, maybe the spark that the Niners defense needed, very much like CMC with the offense last year. The Niners have a good feel for these things when they make these moves. And that could be the move that sparks the Niners defense and their surge for the rest of the season. But getting back to my initial point, this is not some random game for the Niners that's in Jacksonville versus a good team. This is 3 straight losses off of a bye. We need to fix our defense. We need to get healthy. Those 2 things have been contributing to our losses, turnovers, just a bit of unlucky nature to these games. And Brock Purdy suffering a couple concussions didn't help either. He's had time. He went back home. Brock Purdy's going to be slicing Jacksonville's defense. And in fact, the Niners have the number 1 drop back offense in the entire NFL this year. You wouldn't think that based on how everyone talks about Brock Purdy and the 49ers right now, but that's the case. That week against the Bengals, they actually led the NFL in yards per play in that game. They were just unlucky with turnovers. And their defense has not been playing well, not to the level we expected. Their offense has also been missing Trent Williams, All-Pro, and Deebo Samuel. They could get both of those guys back this week, but definitely Deebo Samuel, who's the raw emotion and engine to this football team when you think about their spark and you think about the toughness, the grit, and the explosiveness that he brings. He brings an identity to this team and this offense, and he brings an easy button to Brock Purdy in those situations where he just needs to get the ball out and get it to a playmaker who can create after the catch. That's Deebo Samuel. So if Jacksonville decides to blitz or send extra people, Deebo is going to make them pay in this game. And we've already seen what Brandon Ayuk can do. It's just more difficult to try to take away Kittle or Ayuk or McCaffrey when Deebo is also out there. There's so many weapons, it's just hard to play one of them. You think about Jacksonville, they have a susceptible defense in the middle of the field, and they have a susceptible defense at slot corner. So if you're thinking about McCaffrey, Kittle, Deebo in the middle of the field throwing the football, that's where the Niners want to throw this ball. They're probably not really going to be throwing the ball over there against Campbell or even Darius Williams. The number 1 drop back offense in the NFL. The number 2 EPA offense in the NFL. The number 2 success rate offense in the NFL. That's the 49ers right now. Jacksonville's nowhere close to that. So this offense is a well-oiled machine, especially when we have all the guys available to San Francisco. Coming off the bye week, this is a spot where the defense, Steve Wilks, Kyle Shanahan, can adjust what they've been doing wrong, which I think has been too much man coverage. I think has been too much blitzing. Now that they get Chase Young, they're going to rely on their front four. What's the weakness of Jacksonville offensively? Their offensive line. San Francisco can attack that, and they can put resources in coverage because their front four will get there without blitzing because of Jacksonville's offensive line. You also think about Jacksonville's 2-2 at home this year, kind of oddly enough. 2-2. They're 4-0 on the road, including the games in London. So overall, I think of a Jacksonville defense that's 30th in yards allowed through the air. I think of a San Francisco team that needs it more than anything else. And I actually even would add in, okay, Jacksonville was really hot going into the bye. Does the bye actually take away from their momentum? And who has Jacksonville really beaten as of late? The Steelers? The Saints? I don't know. They're not the Niners. So I think overall, even though it's on the road, San Francisco has a spot here where they need to impress and they need to play well and they need to win. And I trust this veteran team. I trust Kyle Shanahan and I trust Brock Purdy to get it done versus a team that I think is good in Jacksonville, but I don't think they're great. I don't think they're on the Niners level. So give me San Francisco -3 in this matchup. My third best bet for week number 10 is the Baltimore Ravens. I almost didn't add this, but I did bet it at -5.5. I wanted to include it in the best bets at -6. That's probably going to be the number for a lot of you. You could also tease the Ravens as well, but I like the Ravens -6 ultimately at home versus the Cleveland Browns. There's a variety of reasons because I understand that some may say that this is a divisional game, a low total, a good Browns defense, all that jazz. That's fantastic. First of all, Baltimore is the best team in the NFL right now. They have proven that by destroying. The games were not competitive. The Detroit Lions and Seattle Seahawks, who I would argue are better football teams than the Cleveland Browns. Division or no division. They're better football teams than the Cleveland Browns with better quarterbacks than the Cleveland Browns, which is handicap number uno. Deshaun Watson stinks. He's putrid. He sucks. Doesn't matter that Deshaun Watson's in there or PJ Walker's in there or Johnny Manziel is in there. It doesn't matter. He's sick. He sucks. He stinks. He's stanky. Okay? But you talk about the matchup. The Ravens are the third best team in DVOA history so far this year. That's how good the Ravens have been. They're only behind the 2007 Patriots, which were playing in a video game, and the 1991 no-names. I guess I'll just run with that. That's how good the Ravens have been this year through 9 weeks. Third best in NFL history. You talk about the offensive line of Cleveland. Left tackle out for long term. Right tackle's already been out in Conklin. Now you lose Wills on the left side. And your first matchup following that loss is against the team that leads the NFL in sacks, the Baltimore Ravens. At home. Baltimore's at home. So they've got the crowd advantage. Baltimore's really tough to beat in that building in general. The defense plays out of their mind with the crowd noise. And You've got that pass rush, that offensive line traveling on the road, no benefit of the crowd noise, with new tackles, 2 new tackles. So Baltimore will be able to get pressure in this game in key moments. Third down, I just don't see how Cleveland converts. Baltimore has a really good secondary. They have a multitude of different confusing schemes that's going to totally throw Deshaun Watson through a loop. I mean, Deshaun Watson is going to be absolutely horrendous in this game. I can see it now. Strip sack coming for Kyle Van Noy, who, by the way, did not play in that first matchup, but has 5 sacks in 6 games since joining this football team. That was his first game back, I think, in week 3, and he barely played because he just got there. Also, the Baltimore offense didn't have Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle, who's maybe their best offensive lineman, and they didn't have Marlon Humphrey, their best corner, who likely will see a lot of Amari Cooper in this game. So some of the best players for Baltimore didn't play in the first matchup, a game where they easily handled against the rookie quarterback. That's taken with a grain of salt. But what's not taken with a grain of salt is Lamar Jackson's success against the Browns in the first game. 15 for 19, super efficient day for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. That doesn't include his rushing. Baltimore controlled the game offensively and had a very efficient day offensively in a way that we haven't seen from many opponents versus Cleveland. We've also seen a little bit more tape on Cleveland's defense versus teams like Seattle, teams like Indy, who've had some success versus this defense in Cleveland. I think Cleveland's identity is a little bit pumped up due to playing Clayton Tune last week. Now they're playing the most valuable player in the NFL. I also didn't mention that OBJ didn't play in the first game, who's been playing pretty good as of late and led the Ravens in receiving yards, I believe, last week, outside of Mark Andrews. So the Ravens get some reinforcements for this second matchup. They're at home. They have the best defense in the NFL that is not named Cleveland, and they're playing Deshaun Watson, who sucks. New tackles for the Browns. And did I mention Lamar Jackson 7-1 versus Cleveland in games that he finishes? So he also owns the Cleveland Browns. So give me the Ravens, the best team in football right now, -6 at home to cover, very much like they did against Seattle and Detroit. Don't be afraid of this number. It looks a little scary, but when you think about it, the Ravens' defense will dominate, and Lamar will do enough to cover 6 points. My next best bet, which is my 4th of this video, the Detroit Lions, -2.5 on the road at the LA Chargers. The Detroit Lions are just a flat-out better football team than the LA Chargers, and it's by more than 2.5 points. If I'm getting, in my mind, the easily, without a doubt, no question in my mind, better football team under a field goal, no matter the location, especially when you consider that LA is not a home field, especially the Chargers, and the Lions fans travel, and Jared Goff played for the LA Rams, so it's a little bit of a revenge game in a way, or at least a homecoming in a way for Jared Goff. He'll be familiar. The most important player in the game will be familiar with the stadium, or at least the setting and all that stuff. So I feel like the Detroit Lions, the much better team, is only favored by 2.5. And it was initially 1.5, I believe. The Lions just have mismatches with their offense. Their offense across the board in many metrics is top 10 in football. They're top 10 in rush offense. They're top 10 in pass offense. The LA Chargers are 30th in pass defense. And really, when you think about their defense, I think their identity as well is inflated because they've beat up on the Bears. They looked good against the Jets. I mean, congratulations. You look good against Bajent and Zach Wilson. You want a cookie, right? And when you think about the Chargers, their defensive success all is predicated with their front four. The Lions' best unit on their team is their offensive line, which will be adding back Frank Ragnow and Jonah Jackson to the team in the lineup this Sunday. 2 of their, starters on the offensive line, and Frank Ragnow is a Pro Bowl level center that they'll get back in the lineup that I don't think they had versus the Raiders. On top of that, Donovan Peoples-Jones was added to the wide receiving core at the trade deadline, and he's had a bye week to kind of get implemented into the offense. And then you also have the fact that David Montgomery will probably be back in the backfield to help spare Jahmyr Gibbs. But the most important point is the balanced Lions attack. With Ben Johnson getting a bye week to prepare for a bad defense is a match made in heaven for bettors. I don't see the Chargers slowing down the Lions. I think they'll run the ball. I think they'll pass the ball. I think they'll utilize play action. It's going to be very hard for the Chargers to play the two high structures in the way that they want to play if they get ran on, and that opens up play action for Jared Goff. That's where they're most comfortable. On top of that, I think the Lions could really use Aiden Hutchinson against Pipkins on the right side of the line and really tee off on that matchup defensively. I think the Lions playing man coverage will disrupt Herbert and make him hold the ball a little bit, as we saw that only Keenan Allen is a threat for this offense currently. And the Lions have a really good run defense. I don't see Austin Eckler and one of the worst rushing offenses overall, a bottom 10 unit at the very least, running the football against a top 10 rushing defense in the Detroit Lions. So I think that the Chargers will be one-dimensional offensively, and Justin Herbert's really good. But I just don't see them keeping up with the Lions, a more well-rounded team, a better coach team on both sides of the football. I think Detroit will win this game and win this game by about a touchdown. It should be somewhat close because that's Chargers games in general. It should be somewhat fun, but I think at the end of the day, the Lions will prove that they're a tier above the LA Chargers. My fifth best bet for week number 10 is the Pittsburgh Steelers -3.5 at home versus the Green Bay Packers. Guys, look, this is a simple handicap. I don't got to go on for very long. I would rather have the 3. So wait, see if the Steelers go back down to -3. If that's the case, hammer it. Hammer it. The hook scares me a little bit because the Steelers don't score a lot of points. But the Steelers are not about scoring a lot of points. The Steelers are about grit, situational awareness, and winning in the fourth quarter, which is what they're great at. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing one of the worst teams in the first half, which is the Green Bay Packers. So if the Steelers can get a lead, which is some of the things I liked about the Steelers offense last week. I liked that they put Broderick Jones in there at right tackle. I liked that they got under center and ran the football. And if they run the football and commit to it against the Packers, they'll have success. Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, they'll have success. The Packers can't stop the run. They're not good against the run. They've never been under Joe Barry. They never will be. Joe Barry is a disaster. If there's anyone as bad as Matt Canada on the other side of the ball, it's Joe Barry. So they'll run the ball. They'll be successful. And then at least Deontay Johnson or Pickens will have a solid matchup on the perimeter for them to pick on as well. And I love how Pickett is playing in the fourth quarter in the big moments. And I trust them in those moments because of their playmakers on offense and defense. What I also love about this matchup is a young, inexperienced Packer team with a coach that's kind of over his head right now versus Mike Tomlin's defense. Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. Love how Joey Porter Jr. is playing. Hopefully Minka is healthy here. But that pass rush against Jordan Love, there's not really a ton to look at when it comes to the Packers passing game. It's very simple. It's very vanilla. There's nothing that really scares me there. And you're talking about a Packer team that's getting basically the same number on the spread as the Titans did on Thursday night. And the Titans are a better team, in my opinion. They're higher ranked in my power rankings than the Green Bay Packers. The Packers stink. And there's things I like that the Steelers can attack offensively, like that run game. And I like the pass rush for the Steelers at home. They've been really good this year. They basically only really lost to the Niners this year at home. They've been dominant in the win column. So I'm not listening to the analytics. I'm not listening to the yards. This is just Steelers are better. They win more than the Packers. The Packers are not good, and Jordan Love will turn the ball over. I'm taking the Steelers -3.5. I'm hoping for a 3, but -3.5, I'm still putting it as a best bet. My final best bet for week number 10. This might be a little bit gross for some, but I like the Broncos +7.5 on the road on Monday Night Football at the Buffalo Bills. And I know that that's a scary proposition. You're fading Josh Allen at home off of a loss. and the Bills love to blow out opponents. But that was the old Bills. Like, I think we've got to get over this idea of the Buffalo Bills. There's a lot to like about Denver in this matchup, especially how Denver has been playing as of late. Denver's defense has allowed under 20 points in their last 3 games in a row, 2 of them versus the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So it makes me believe in Denver's defense. And what I like about Denver in this matchup, defensively, Pat Surtain defending Stephon Diggs, won't get overwhelmed. You got Justin Simmons in the back end, lurking on passes of Josh Allen, might get an interception in this game. And the Broncos pass rush has been very much improved as of late. Nick Bonito has been really good. Cooper's been good. Browning's been good. And Zach Allen has been a maniac. He can really go after that young Osiris Torrance in the middle of that offensive line. I think Zach Allen could have a huge game here. The Bills have been inconsistent running the football, as always. And I feel like Denver's defense will make a few plays in this game, and they've got a corner that can match up with Diggs. On the other side of the ball, I like how Sean Payton will be able to scheme coming off a bye week versus a defense that ranks 30th since week 5. 30th in EPA since week 5 is the Bills' defense. They're one of the worst defenses in football. And Russell Wilson's been playing decent. They've got Jerry Jeudy. They've got Cortland Sutton. And a run game right now, Javonte Williams and company, top 10 in success rate over the last 4 games. So the Denver Broncos have been running the football. At minimum, they've had 115 yards since their first matchup versus the Chiefs. So I like the way that Denver's running the ball, the way they can kind of pace the game, possess the ball, run it down the Bills' throat, operate through play action, especially if they get the lead early. I love the Broncos here to stay in the game versus the Bills. Allen's been known to turn it over, to force it. I could see them even backdoor covering with the hook on the 7 with Russell Wilson making some magic in the end, as we've seen the Broncos do before. So I like this. You're getting Sean Payton off of a bye, an ascending Broncos team that might be a little underrated right now versus a little bit of an overrated Josh Allen Bills team. Those are my best bets for week 10 of the 2023 NFL season. Let me know yours in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.